Hello, accounting students. It's Mrs. Bloomquist. We're all the way up to lesson number 5 in chapter 9, posting from a cash payments journal. And the objective of this lesson is to post cash payments to an accounts payable ledger and to a general ledger. All right, so as we move forward, one of the really important vocabulary terms and ideas that we want to pay attention to is the idea of a credit limit. Credit limit's just the maximum outstanding balance that's allowed to any customer by a vendor. So every business that we work with, every vendor we work with is gonna, if they allow us to buy items on account, they're gonna have a limit in terms of how much they are willing to let us purchase before we pay them. And one of the things we would want to consider is that it's really important to keep track of every balance we have with a vendor, because if we're at our credit limit and we wanted to make a purchase for a potential client and we weren't able to get merchandise or supplies in a timely fashion, we might lose a sale, and that could negatively impact our business. So making sure we have a good understanding of where we're at for all of our vendor accounts really helps our business to be more successful. We definitely don't want to lose any sales because we weren't able to make purchases on our vendor accounts. Okay, so what we're looking at here is our cash payments journal. We're on page 21, and it looks like we have a transaction from Bearden Chemicals going on here. We also then have our accounts payable ledger below for the vendor Bearden Chemicals. And remember that we are using subsidiary ledgers so that we can keep track of all of our accounts payable activity. So the first thing we're seeing from our cash payments journal is that we're recording the date and the page number of the journal where we find the information. We have a debit to accounts payable of $54.83, so we're going to transfer that information, and then we're going to adjust our balance on our Bearden Chemicals account. So this would be our cash payments journal. Note that it's a debit to accounts payable, so our credit balance decreases. The vendor number at play here is 210, and you just want to make sure that you're always keeping all of the information that you need in all locations. So that vendor 210 number goes back to the cash payments journal. Here we're going to be looking at posting from those general amount columns here from the cash payments journal to the general ledger. So we have a purchases transaction that we're going to be reporting on November 3rd. It's on, again, CP21, so the cash payments journal on page 21. The general column debit of $480 is going to our purchases ledger. And we're going to be shifting our account balance information so that we now know what that new debit balance is. Again, vendor number 5110 goes back to the cash payments journal so that we have a good audit trail if we would ever need it. All right, here we're looking at our cash payments journal, and we need to total, prove, and then rule that cash payments journal. Now, you would always want to total and prove when you get to the bottom of a page on our cash payments journal. So every time you get to the bottom of the page, you total and prove. But you also then total and prove whenever you get to the end of the month. So what we're seeing here is a transaction for month end where we're going to go ahead and total up. So we're indicating on the 30th that we now have totals. You can see this single line is in play so that we know everything below that single line is going to be a total of all the information above. So now we have our totals columns for our general column debit, credit, the accounts payable debit, the purchases discount credit, and the cash credit. Once we have proved that all of those debits and credits equal out and are in balance, then we can put the double rule below indicating, hey, this balance information is good and it's okay to go forward. Some of the most common mistakes would be transposing numbers when you're writing debits or credits, or just putting your debit or your credit in the wrong column. So just something to keep in mind if your balances don't total and you need to go back and look for errors. All right, so here we're posting from the special amount columns of a cash payments journal to the general ledger. So right now we're looking at that cash payments journal right here up at the top. And we have our proved totals for our general columns and then our accounts payable debit. Here's our account number. Purchases discount credit, account number. Cash credit, account number. So we have our journal totals, and we're just going to go ahead and put those in the general ledger accounts for accounts payable, purchases discount, and cash. So as we look through, we're going to transfer the date. This is a month-end transaction. The journal page number, where the cash payments journal, where we're finding all that information, is on page 22. Then we're going to transfer our debit or our credit amounts from our cash payments journal to each of those general ledger accounts. And then we're going to go make sure that we give a correct account balance total at the bottom. So the debit of $7051.50 results in a credit balance of $19,604.67. Finally, then, the correct account numbers, make sure that those go back to the cash payments journal. All right, now a completed accounts payable ledger. That's the final piece. So you can see all of these subsidiary ledgers that we have going on for each of our vendor accounts. So each vendor has its own subsidiary ledger, and we remember that all of our subsidiary ledgers together total our accounts payable ledger, and I can see the individual vendor balance for each account. So once I go ahead and take all of the information that's listed in each of my individual subsidiary ledgers and put it all in one location, now I'm creating a schedule of accounts payable. And sometimes businesses also call that the accounts payable trial balance. So you just want to keep in mind, some businesses might say that that's a trial balance for the accounts payable. Here it is, and really all I've done is put together another financial report that lists out each of the individual vendor balances, and then I total it up. So here's my single rule, my total, my double rule, and I'm proving that the total accounts payable balance is $19,604.67. So when I add up all of my individual subsidiaries, they do equal the balance in the controlling account. All right, we're on to the audit your understanding questions. So in which column of the cash payments journal are the amounts that are posted individually to the accounts payable ledger? And remember, you'll find those in the accounts payable debit column. The 5 steps for ruling a cash payments journal at the end of the month. Remember also, you're going to rule and total at the bottom of a page as well. So that single line across the bottom, writing in the date, writing in totals in the account title column, then total each line, and then double rule across the bottom after you've proved the balances. Remember, you don't double rule till you're sure all of the balances are correct. The relationship between a controlling account and a subsidiary ledger, we just always want to remember, once we total all of the information in every subsidiary ledger, now we have the balance of the controlling account. Okay. Now, one thing that you probably want to consider and think through is what benefit a business would have, or what benefit a business would see because they have the schedule of accounts payable, why that might be good for a business and good for business practices. So be thinking through that question as one of the big ideas from particularly this lesson, but also this chapter. All right, so at this point you want to go answer the form questions online. You're going to go to lesson 5 and chapter 9 and do the work together and on your own activities. And once you wrap those up, you should go and take care of the application, challenge, mastery, and study guide. All right, good luck.